We can start.
You're late again. Twice in the day.
I'm always right on time.
Okay, so how's everyone feeling? Tired?
No.
Overwhelmed? I am. I have to make a confession. To get here today, I had to spend last night in Moscow airport, which means I slept maybe 4 hours tonight, and that sleep was on an airport floor. So I'm not feeling too jolly. We'll see if this makes sense. What I tried to come up with is a methodology for how to make second half extensions, how to come up with new stuff that has a chance of winning in the debate. So again, knowing that I got 4 hours of sleep, sorry if I stop making sense at some point, but please ask questions, and if at any point anything's unclear, same goes for you, Kai. I see there it sounds okay. So essentially, if you don't have a plan, or sometimes you end up in this situation, you and your partner, you're ruined. It's either that the first half takes up all your ideas, or you think that this debate is really simple and you can't find something, or you don't think that what you have is enough to win the debate. So there are certain things that you can do, and I think that most second half strategies fall generally under, at least from my experience, under these two things. Firstly, I personally believe that this is the best position to be in. If I could just choose in a tournament to only be second govs and second offs, then I would take it 10 times out of 10. Because it's so much nicer. You and your partner just work together on one case just to make that extension, and then your partner has the whole speech to prove why you won. Rather than the first half, who actually have to figure out the debate first, rush, stress, and everything. Second half is way more laid back, way more strategical, way nicer to think about if you have a structure and an approach. There's certain misconceptions and mistakes I made in the beginning of my career when being second government or second oppositions. Was that me and my partner thought that you have to come up with your case before the debate. Basically, you have your 15 minutes, your second government, but you will write your case as if you would be first government, and that's the only mistake that you can do, because you end up if you start writing your case in this 15 minutes of prep. You waste your time. You write down, you make a case from the first ideas you had, and the first ideas you have are very likely the first ideas that the other team also had in the first half, and they're going to tell them, and then you're going to sit there in the debate, sitting there. There's no worse feeling than hearing them saying everything you have on your paper, and you realize before you make your speech that you're already screwed. So to not get into this, I think it's rather simple. There are two things I found work, and I'm going to go through them in parts. I think what broadly you can do in second half is either deeper analysis on whatever the debate is. You've been in the debate, you've listened to what people debated, you have full information to realize what's not been debated yet, to go and actually explain things. First halves usually overburn themselves, try to take up everything, end up missing some points. The other part is if you can manage to do new stuff, that's always more exciting, and we'll get to that. So, when it comes to deeper analysis, there's only two things you can do. It's like a scheme of things you can do in second half. One is widening the debate, the other one means narrowing the debate. I assume that whatever the first half did is like the middle, because that's usually what first halves do. So yes, when it comes to widening the debate, whatever the debate is, you ask yourself what burdens our side took already. Like what was the first government or the first opposition proving in their speeches? To sort of and figure out maybe you can take a bigger burden, maybe you can prove something that they weren't brave enough to prove, and that automatically wins you the debate. What we would do in this extension, I would just come out as an extension speaker, and the formula goes like this: you tell the judge explicitly, you tell them they said that it's okay if something is true to do this thing, and we say even if that something they proved is not true, it's still okay to do it. Meaning, like you take up a bigger burden in debate. One example I really remember from this was a debate I had in Poland, actually, way back. It was on this house would ban studies that explore differences between the male and female brain. And we were second opposition, and we were really struggling to find an extension that would be reasonable, because it's a very tough debate. What we figured out, seeing what the first half did in that debate, was that basically the first government said that these studies prove, like, encourage sexism because they find some kind of differences between the male and female brain that lead to some kind of sexist conclusions, or the existence of these studies already have a negative impact on gender roles in society. And what the opposition did, what our first opposition did in that debate, is that they said, no, but what these studies will find is inevitably that there are no differences between the male and female brain, thus disproving all the sexists. And so that's the first half of the debate, and the second government also tries to jump in there, and they got a fourth because they, that debate was already lost in the first half. What we did in second opposition was we came out and said, look, it's fine what first opposition said. If those studies disprove sexism, we're super happy with that. But what we wanted to prove is that even if these studies find conclusive proof that there's differences between male and female brain, we should do them, and here's why. Taking a whole, like a much bigger burden than our first half did. Basically, you know, talking about why it's actually important to shape our educational systems according to what people are, that actually helps solve bias and stuff. Which also means that, you know, never take things for given. Whatever the first government sets up might not necessarily be true. Whatever your first half sets up also might not necessarily be true. Start thinking whether maybe they took up a little bit too small of a burden, and you can just go and be much more braver than them, prove much more exciting things. The other part from deeper analysis, though, which is we find that, like, I mostly lose to this one. The second half that do this is the narrowing part, which is basically you take up one important issue in the debate. You take up less burden, but you give substantially more proof. Because what we still do in first halves, and what many teams do, is that they go everywhere. You spread your stuff across everything. You want to burn the ground for the second half. You're like, we're going to take 5 arguments, so the second half has nothing to say. We're going to totally, you know, win this debate that way. And sometimes it works, but a lot of times you have a second half team that will find this one thing that you either didn't explain too much because you were explaining your 4 other arguments, or you missed this one link. They will spend 7 minutes explaining why this one link is crucial, and they're going to win the debate. And that's a really sucky feeling. But I realized this only, I think, after I started working in advertising, why it really works, is that when you try to communicate like a whole lot of things at once, it's really hard to be like structured and clear and analyzed enough that you actually bring all of them to the goal that it actually has a lot of impact. Because if you show that like A has a little impact, B has little impact, C has little impact, or maybe you never get to that point, then you might end up somewhere here, which you never kind of conclusively show that something is really bad or really good. The second half can just pick one of your points, but explain it so well, give it a lot of impact, and they have reached the goal and they take it from you. And this is the same thing that works like anywhere in communication, like in life. When I have like clients that are companies that say like, look, we want a poster for an ad campaign, it should say that our product is cheap but qualitative and lasts longer than others and is nicer than others and you know makes your friends happier. And you can communicate 5 things with one medium. It's always best and most clear if you choose few things but really nail them to the point. Smaller is really better. As long as you're very clear, you have very high chances of winning stuff. Okay. Now the new stuff thing. I find this to be like a recent development in debating. That in the second half, and probably my favorite strategy as well, to come up with new stuff, is you basically introduce a whole new framework to the debate. You have seen what the guys debated before, and then you just think of like a whole new debate within that debate. Basically, in the second half, you're in the perfect position to make, especially in second half or second up, to make your own new set of rules on why this debate should be won. And judges love that, because if you're a judge, what you're looking for is clarity on who won the debate. Because, I mean, you're a judge, you're no longer competing, you're like hangover, you had to listen to 4 of these rounds today. Like, if some team comes out and explicitly tells you why they win the debate, establishes clearly the rules and why that happens, like it's your bread and butter, like you really want to award that team for it. And in the last 2 years, it became very popular in the international debating world. It's known as the comparative. Yeah. And if you have seen the finals of the last 2 EUDCs, this precise strategy, if you would notice, is the one that won both of these finals 2 years in a row. The final in Zagreb the year before this was this house believes that the feminist movement should oppose military interventions which claim to further women's rights. Has anyone seen that final? There's a video of it online. No? You should check it out. The extension speech of second opposition is my favorite speech ever in debates. The whole debate goes like this. So everyone's an amazing speaker. They're all like Oxford teams, and they come out and give all this analysis on how military interventions work, how the feminist movements work in these other countries, and no one really wins at this point. So like they're both kind of fighting for it. Second government does the same thing. They come in and they try to fight them for this point, and like who helps the feminist movements in these countries where the interventions happen, right? What the second opposition does is they come out and say like, look, this really doesn't matter. Like, whatever the feminists say is not going to affect the interventions, whether they happen or not. You know, not a bit. Like, no one cares whether the feminists oppose this intervention or not, given that interventions are either largely supported by population or largely unsupported. The feminists are never kind of the tipping point. What they say do matters is how these feminist movements actually achieve their main goal, which is advancing women's rights in our countries. And if we can prove you that in our world, since they were opposition in their world, the feminist movements are so much weaker and so much worse in advancing women's rights, we win. So this is the point where they set a whole new debate. Like they just reshape the rules, right? They just come out and say like, whatever was said before doesn't matter. Like they package it in a way that like it's insignificant in the world. But what is significant is our new rule that none of the teams before knew. Is the rule that that is very important of how women's rights are in our own country. And they just took the debate like easily. The same was for this year's final. This House would treat the deaths of soldiers as regrettable losses of lives rather than examples of terrorism. And the second opposition goes in and does the same strategy. Sets up new rules, says like, just gives an intro of why the people in the debate before, what they said doesn't really matter in like the big context of life, and why on the comparative, as everyone says now apparently, their team wins and they easily took the final. So when this goes on, when you should watch both of these debates online, if you want to see what I mean, and really check what the second opposition does strategically. And it's very clear how they just reintroduce the rules and won the debate. Okay, so knowing that, you still end up in the point of thinking of, does the stuff I have on my paper matters? Because what I was trying to explain before, that you shouldn't make your case before the debate. You shouldn't write your speeches if you were making it like, well, it's my first argument, second, third. You should brainstorm with your partner the whole 15 minutes, not thinking of what the structure would be. Just write as many arguments as you can. And then once the debate starts, you basically pick out the things that weren't said by opening half, make a case while other people are speaking. And when you have that, you should ask yourself. There's this one very convenient model. I don't know if people locally use it. It's called RNA. Just you take any argument you have before making it into your speech, and you ask yourself whether the thing I have is R, relevant, and new, and C, analyze. It works for sort of like, without the end, it works for any argument the opening halves would do in the debate. You just basically, I mean, you figure out whether the thing you're bringing in second half, is it relevant to the debate? Because I mean, a lot of times when teams don't find extensions, they go out for things that are more in the periphery. So I don't know if you know what I mean. I've had cases where like we're debating economics, but somehow we debate everything in the first half, and then the second half doesn't have what to do. So they pick up something like, how does it relate to animal rights, and make a case about it. And even if they analyze it well, even if it's new, it's not relevant to the case. Like you have to pick up only things that are very central to the debate, or learn how to make whatever things you say very central to the debate. Realize that they're new. Making things new is also a skill. Which actually most native English speakers do much better than us CSL debaters. Because you a lot of times lose to native English teams when you're like, they just rephrase the things you said and analyze them better. It's not as, like, in extension, it's not always about coming up with the, like, this is the worst case scenario, right? But if you really don't have any case, what you do is you take the first government's case, take their strongest points, explain them in a different way. Add your own different examples. If you're going to have stronger examples, explain them better, use more impactful words, you're likely to win the debate still. And again, you analyze everything. I guess obvious. All right. Now, how to train to come up with stuff. Which is, I guess, the last part, maybe the more interactive part of this presentation. We found what we did in our kind of society is we just try to practice as much with thinking of different ways how to prove things. So you should, for yourselves with your partner, kind of brainstorm a long list of questions, which you can just ask yourself about any motion. I think we had about 20 that we just had on the paper, and we could look at it and prep with my partner, which was very useful. The ones I remember from them here are like, why are we doing this now? Like, maybe this is an issue that can solve itself in 5 years. If you can prove that and that has a harm, we kill their argument. At the same time, ask yourself why this actor is doing it. Maybe this is a debate that